in the monthly, and we used to induct them in the monthly webinars. Now, over to the president for that pleasant task.
Today, I am very happy to introduce Engineer George Paul, who was a product of Thrissur Engineering College, and he also took the MBA. He has attended a lot of training programs at Oxford, IIM Ahmedabad, ISB, Kellogg. The list goes like that. And he was also the executive director of UPCL, a very simple person. Now he is working as a consultant for a Denmark-based company. And TMA is very proud to get such kind of a very brilliant person as our member. I'm very happy to introduce him to this TMA forum. Once again, I welcome Engineer George Paul to TMA. Over to George Paul to say a few words.
Thank you, Dr. Xavier. You are the only person I have met in the TMA personally, because I would have loved to meet all of you in person, but during the COVID times, it is not possible. Once again, good morning and good evening. I think good morning to Chief Guest, Mr. Srini, and all the office bearers and August members, those who are attending the webinar. It's my pleasure and privilege to join Thrissur Management Association, and I could see a list of very, very august, experienced and successful business people associated with the TMA. So I look forward in becoming a contributory member to the TMA activities and enhance my own experience and knowledge in the management areas like attending. I have had the fortune of attending one webinar, maybe a meeting with Mr. Paul Thomas as a part of the Advisory Council of Jubilee Mission and the Trust. So that's the only person I met through the webinar. So I look forward for individually meeting each one of you and working with you and contributing to TMA in whatever way it's possible. And thank you for the formal induction to TMA. Thank you.
Thank you.
I think we'll be eager to listen to Mr. Srini for the evening session today. So we will have a more personal interaction in the days to come, hopefully. Thank you, Dr. Xavier, once again.
Okay.
Thank you, Mr. George Paul, and we expect a lot of contributions from your side as an active member of TMA. Now, let me invite our Honorable Joint Secretary, Engineer Francis George, for the introduction of the Chief Guest.
Thank you, Gio. Am I audible?
Yeah, yes, you're audible.
Yeah. First of all, I want to thank Srini. I can't thank you enough. It's your board meeting today, and you've taken the time out to address TMA. It's a great thing. I mean, it's really great. I can't thank you enough for this. Okay, I won't be long. I'm not going to repeat everything that is written in the brochure that we circulated to everyone who's on this meeting. I'll just say whatever is not in the brochure, based on what I personally know about my personal relationship with Srini. Srini and I were MBA classmates in Pune. We graduated. We did our MBA from University of Pune, and the why I have great awe and respect for Srini is because he toppled the whole concept of what it takes to be successful in life, right? And I think that's the most outstanding thing about it. Now, what I grew up with, I grew up to a good extent in Kerala and a little while in the Gulf also. The concept and the notion that I grew up with, what it takes to be successful is you study hard and you score good marks and you secure a good college admission, you score good marks there also, you get a job, and from there you're successful. And later on in life, I learned that what you learn in the classroom is not really what matters. What you learn outside of the classroom is what matters more for successful, especially in a global environment. And Srini knew it all along, I guess, because when we were doing MBA, I used to see him seldom in the classroom. You know, he was like the exact opposite of the concept that I grew up with. I mean, he He used to bunk classes. He used to enjoy life. He used to party hard. I've heard about parties that go on in his apartment until like 2, 3 o'clock in the morning. And then Srini sleeps. Srini and a couple of other friends, they sleep through noon the next day. And obviously he can't make it to the class. And that was a kind of, but there are a lot of important things that he learned during that phase, right? He expanded his network. He got to know a lot of people. His connections in Pune and outside of Pune were just great. And all that was picked up because of the kind of life that he lived, not focusing too much on the studies. And when it came to the exams, he did equally well. He did equally well as the others studious people like me who went to the class throughout. So Srini is an embodiment of the concept which is contrary to what we as parents and grandparents in this group teach our kids, and I'm sure that constitutes a good part of the message that Srini delivers today also. That's it from my side. Thank you, Gio.
Thank you, Engineer Francis George. Now the online platform is open to Mr. Srini Tanikella. Over to you, sir.
Thank you. Well, first of all, I truly appreciate the invite. Thank you, Francis, and everyone in this team for inviting me. I think it's a great honor for me. I always want to, my two goals in life: learn and share. Okay, learn as much as you can, and then share as much as you can. Okay, because there's no selfishness in either learning or in sharing. Okay, so today the topic that I'm going to talk about is much more around the art of possible. And the art of possible really is an instinctive technique that is used by several leaders. And I'll go through some of the examples based on my own interaction with some of these leaders. And the whole thing here, the whole notion here is, if you look into a situation where let's just say that you're actually a high jump runner, okay, and you're taking part in a race there, and then your best is probably, let's just call it as 14 feet is what you jumped, the highest ever, okay, and then somebody comes in and then does 14.3. You've never done 14.3. You can't just come out of the competition saying, I can't do that. You're in the spur of the moment, you got to do something. There's nothing that is behind that tells you, hey, here's how you do 14.4. It's your instinct that comes into play there. Okay, it's not your past records because you've only done 14 before. Your coach cannot help you from the sidelines because if he knew anything better, he would have told you right then itself. Or, he would have made you jump 14.4 at the beginning itself. So you're into that situation where you have to adapt, you have to lead, you have to show some instinct. Okay. Now, these are situations that you actually see several times. I mean, this particular situation that I've talked about is something unique in a way that, someone is put on the spot. But these kind of situations, you may not be put on the spot, but at the same time, you'll have some time in several instances, you'll have some time to build upon. And then your instinct, your leadership capabilities, your fearlessness, those will come into foreplay. And then you, along with your teams, will be asked to deliver something that has never been done before. Okay, that is the art of possible. Something that previously was termed as impossible. And then you get into, you make it possible. And Francis, I appreciate that remnants of the past. In fact, I'll tell you, and my dad, as I think about it, my dad probably is an embodiment of art of the possible. And I'll tell you why. My dad was in the second batch of IIT Kharagpur. Okay, and we were from a very remote village in Andhra Pradesh called, at that point, it's Andhra Pradesh. It was Andhra Pradesh before it became into separate states now. And a very small village. My dad was one of the first people to actually leave about IIT Kharagpur. My dad was one of the first people to actually study outside of, the Andhra Pradesh, the state of, at that point, state of Madras was, it was the state of Madras, and then Andhra was part of it. So there were very few people who actually went outside the state. So when my dad went to Kharagpur, he has never seen anyone live about, he has never seen anyone taller than 5'6". In his village at that time, the tallest was actually 5'6". He has never seen anybody taller than that. He didn't know any of the languages. And he ended up being in the same room as somebody from the north of India. So, and then, just surviving that part and, learning on the fly there, learning on the job, learning as a student, didn't know the language, didn't know how to, communicate as much. And then from his journey to, becoming part of the finance commission and all, my dad actually was a CEO of a shipping company and a cement company and other things. So while he did all that, he told me just before I went to my college, he said, see, here's the thing. You might want to take, you might want to do all these enjoyments and all right now, because when you start working, you're not going to have much of that. So I took his advice really literally, and I probably listened to it much more seriously than what I should have. So in what you said is absolutely right, that I made the best of those 2 years with at MBA. That way, when I look back at it, I won't feel remorse that I missed something. Now, my dad also underplayed something. My dad actually did not tell me how hard it is after college. Had he told me a little bit about it, I would have actually paid a little bit more attention to college. But so he downplayed or underplayed that life after college, and I overplayed that life of college during that party times. Okay, so that's how I got into all this. And after college, you're again put into a position where survival of the fittest, right? And I'll go through a little bit of that. I came to the US in about late 90s. But that's for a different time. Today, this session, typically, I do a four-hour workshop usually on the same topic, okay, for various members of my team. So I'm going to try to condense all of that into the time that we have available. Okay, so just for time check, how much time do I have? Actually, it's about 6:20 in my clock here in the morning. So, and that must be about 6:50 for you. Do I have another 30 minutes or?
Sure. Yes. 30 to 40 minutes.
Okay, perfect. So
40 minutes.
Are you able to hear me okay? Any voice issues, or this is okay?
Yes, that's perfect.
No problem.
Perfect. Let me do this. Let me share my screen here. Okay, if that's okay. And then right, I'm gonna adjust this a little bit. Okay, got it. Are you able to see my screen?
Yes, yes.
Okay, so first of all, art of the possible, it's a leadership technique. Okay, in the management world, it's a leadership technique. It can be used as an individual technique, like I said in the example of that athlete who has been put into a situation that he's never seen before. Okay, this technique is actually to explore ideas and solutions that were previously considered as impossible. You cannot do it. Okay, it's both a science and an art. It's used by several leaders, innovators, sports persons for incremental success. And I'll go through some of those examples with you. The thing about this is it's based on your instinct. It's not based on some, I did this and you follow this and here's the roadmap to success. Okay, this one is really based on your instinct. Let me tell you a story. And as we go through this, I'm also going to describe some of my experiences with these global leaders. Okay, I'm actually blessed to be in a position where I've had the chance of interacting with several of these leaders, and also at a close quarters with some of them. Okay. And I live in Fremont, California, which is, the Silicon Valley of the West. And this is where most of the companies, whether it is Google or, previously Yahoo and, home of Oracle and other companies, several other companies. Okay. And there's a lot of, because of that, there's a lot more of venture capitalists, startups, and all these ideas that come up. Okay, so and Apple, of course, was born here too. So let me just give you a little, tidbit on Bud Tribble and Steve Jobs. Okay, and that was one of the first known stories of making the impossible possible. When Jobs and Tribble were working on the iMac Macintosh, earlier versions of it, okay, Jobs did not like the time that it used to take for starting the Mac. It was taking a long time. And then he told Bud, who was the lead engineer, saying, you need to cut off 20 seconds out of this, reduce this by 20 seconds. And Bud is an engineer by nature. And he was like, how do you take this, 20 seconds out? You can't do it, simply cannot do it. There's no, you need the RAM to turn on, you need the hard drives to kick in, you need the processors, you need the RAM. It's a process. And there's nothing that I can give you 20 seconds off. And then Jobs was a fantastic storyteller. So he said, here's what, Bud, I expect, and this is even before Apple sold a lot of those Macintoshes, I expect a world, and Jobs tells this story to Bud saying, I'm expecting several hundred thousands of these Macintoshes to be sold in the next few years. 20 seconds per restart. Imagine if somebody restarts it twice. The math that Steve Jobs came up with is one person's lifetime of 71 years. And he said, if you can reduce this by 20 seconds, I can actually, save someone's life of 71 years. It's worth that, just this time of restarting. So, and that is the art of storytelling. That is the art of, telling somebody that, whatever you've done is fantastic, but that's not the greatest. How do you get to the greatest? Okay. Now, Bud went back and said, okay, well, let's go back and, do whatever. And then within 6 months, Bud was able to reduce it, not by 20 seconds, by a lot more. Okay, that was the first instance of making an impossible possible. Now, first thing out there is you can see that the leadership in Jobs has, he was very persuasive. For those who have lived in the valley, he was very persuasive in terms of, asking his employees to outperform every single time. Okay. And he also had the charisma to actually back up and say that, I'll be there for you. Even if you fail, that's okay, but I'll be there for you. And he had an unflinching passion towards things. Okay. So all of that is that it drives that natural instinct of making the impossible possible. When you go and talk to somebody like an engineer and say that, and build your story and say, here's why I want you to do that. That is a story that's appealing enough. No, at the same time, story is not.
Art of the possible. Meeting
Switch off, switch off. Mute, please mute. Please mute your sound, madam.
No, then the next one is, that the previous one that I said is incremental progress. The second one that I'm going to talk about is, it's a brand new philosophy that iPhone has actually brought together. Okay. Now, when iPhone was not even manufactured, look at, what the market was. the market was largely driven by Nokia. Okay, and then there's a little bit of Motorola and few other phones. Okay, but Nokia was the biggest giant. Okay, and then it was almost impossible, and the market was so much in favor of Nokia that it would have been, not even logical for somebody to go and enter that iPhone, that market. Okay, but then what Apple did was they already had the iPod around that time. Okay, and they said, well, as much as it looks as a phone, I am not going to make a phone out of this. And people were confused. This is a phone, you said. I said, yeah, it is a phone, but it's much more than a phone. So when Steve Jobs released the first iPhone, it was less of a phone. In fact, most of the phone functionality was not working. It was dropping calls almost every single time. But what did Apple do right? Apple said, I am only going to release a version of the iPhone that is a bare necessary thing for phone. Okay? But it will have music in it. It's a combination of my iPod, which is the music player. I'll hook a phone into it. So now you got the best music player in the world with an okay phone that can also function. That was iPhone version 1. Okay, in many ways, the iPhone had lots of issues in the first version of it. Okay, but then it slowly improved, went to, by the time it was iPhone 4, Apple has captured the market. And that what is the meaning of that? Okay, and that if you see my quote to the right, that's exactly what, and although the quote was actually several years back by St. Francis of Assisi, where he says, start by doing what's necessary, then do what's possible, and suddenly you are doing the impossible. So in a market that was completely captured by Nokia, Apple went in, put a great iPod player, music player, put the phone in there. So you got a phone and a music player. They did exactly what is necessary. They did not overdo it. They did exactly what is necessary. Okay. And then they started improving it. And over time, they've done the impossible. Today, there's not much of a, the difference between the first and the next is a huge margin in the Apple store. So 2 things that we've covered so far, which is the first one, it's an instinct thing. Okay, you're in a situation that is based on an instinct. You have to make some decisions. The second one is more around a strategic one, which is how do I outperform somebody that is already in there with a huge lead? What is it that I'm going to do that is different? I can't make a phone and beat that. I need to do something else. So I put, iPhone put a music player, and then it generated a community around it. That network, along with the music player and a decent phone, made iPhone the best. Okay, so these are techniques, these are things that, people use at the end, and these are all leadership techniques. These are not something that, an engineer is bringing in. Okay, now let me get to the next one, which is again based on a failure that turned into a success. Okay, that's again a good example of the art of the possible. Sehwag, the Indian cricketer, was actually a failure when it came to his batting. He was a middle order player. And by the way, I love cricket. I still play cricket whenever I get some time. But so then Sehwag went to Saurav Ganguly was the one who actually told Sehwag, saying, "Hey, you're not doing anything in the middle order. There's no chance in the middle order, by the way. Okay, so the only chance for you is your top order as an opener. And then Sehwag at that time has never played opener, leave for his, for his own city or own state. He has never, leave India, not even for his own city and state has he played as an opener. Then he goes and asks 3 or 4 people. Even he goes and asks Lakshman, saying, what do you think about opening? Lakshman says, don't ever do it. I've tried it. I've burned my hands. Never do that. Every single one he asked, he said, no. But that was the only position that was open. He didn't have a position, that the rest of the team was done. So he goes back to Ganguly and says, listen, boss, I'm going to do this, but you got to give me an opportunity here for at least 4 or 5 matches and promise me that you will not drop. And Ganguly says, absolutely, you got this. Go and do it. The impossible became possible there. Sehwag became one of India's big, most successful openers, and he has become, an enigma when it comes to, playing at that position. Still, it's a mystery how Sehwag actually transitioned from a not so great middle order batsman to one of India's greatest openers. Okay, this instance again, this is, there is no blueprint to success there. Sehwag has never played that. And nobody in the team even has done that kind of a transition. There was nothing that anybody can say, here's your way for success. Or there's nothing that a coach could say that if you do these 10 things, you will be successful. It's pure instinct. It's fearless leadership. Okay. And self-belief, of course, goes in there. Okay. Now the next story, and I hope you're getting a gist of the topic here. It is more instinctive. It is based on fearless leadership. It is self-belief. It is zero fear of failure. Okay, and it is take your risks at the right time. That kind of a philosophy. Okay. Now, my own story at FedEx. Okay, at Federal Express, that was actually my first job when I first came to the US. And it was my brother and I, we went on to build the world's first shipping engine that integrated with, SAP and other leading ERP systems. Okay. And it's a proud moment, when you can say that was truly the world's first shipping engine, integrated multi-carrier shipping engine that integrated with all these big companies. Now at FedEx, it was we had a chief information officer by name Rob Carter, and we had a town hall. Okay, and during the town hall, there was also an exhibition of products. Any product that Rob liked would be selected, and then you would get into a partnership with, a much lucrative contract with FedEx, and then you pretty much also have a chance to replace others. Okay, and you're going to become the main system integrator. So ours was a very small team. We had 4 or 5 people. Okay. Now, the entire event was about a 3-hour event. And it was based on, how the big companies usually are in the first, and then the not so big company, the smaller ones are towards the end. Okay. So Rob, by that time, has already gone through, and he spent a few, maybe 2.5 hours just working his way through all these companies, and it's like a kind of an exhibition hall, okay, with everyone showing their products and all of that. And then as it came to within maybe 10 feet or so, 10, 15 feet, we were away from Rob Carter. Then Rob was coming in, and then there was one last stop, and then us. Okay. So we built the system for about 6 months or so. Okay, and we know that we had some bugs in there, but it was still in a good position to actually demo it. So we can still demonstrate it and make it work. And we had our own, way of, we thought it was really, really good and all that. Now, the people that were ahead of us, they looked at it, and every single time they looked at it, the system did not work. So they were full confident that, okay, if there is anybody, then, they can definitely beat us. Okay, so they were all gung-ho about it. And as Rob was coming in, so he had this pitch stop there, he was talking to them, and then I just suddenly realized that our system was not working. And my brother was like, okay, what do we do? And Rob was just almost done with that. And then he was walking towards us. Okay. And system was not working. What do? I just restarted it. My brother looked at me and he was like, what did you do? I said, I restarted it. Well, this guy's coming in. We've got nothing to show. Well, either way, you can't show a product that was not working. So I just restarted it. And my brother was really, really very, very upset with me that, I restarted it and our main person is coming literally 2 minutes away from actually coming in. Now, as you know, that little luck also has to play in. As Rob was coming in, somebody else caught hold of him. And they exchanged a few notes, and it took them about 4 or 5 minutes. This system that I'm talking about 1998, 1999, when we were working on Windows 95. That system took a long time to restart. And that's what actually made my brother mad. And he was like, why did I do that? But I didn't know anything better. I said, now, as soon as it restarted, as soon as the application, as we booted the application, Rob walks in. We had the best demo during that entire, time that, that Rob spent there. He didn't know everything that we went through. He looked at it and was like, wow, this is great. And then instead of taking 10 minutes of his time at our pod, he took a full 30 minutes. And then he invited us back, the week after, and then we were able to seal the deal. So that instinct of, and even today, my brother tells me, how did you even, you must be a dumb guy by, restarting when that happened. I said, no, that was my instinct. We would not have, we would have gone home, either go home or do something out there. And I thought, just doing something out there might help us. And it was just my instinct that I pressed the button. So this is what I said, when I say the art of the possible, that instinct that plays in. Okay, sometimes it is planned, sometimes it is or not planned, but you need to be prepared for that instant. Okay, the legacy might always look good, but it will not last. If I had to say that, if I had to go back and say, okay, I'm going to put this plan together of 3 more weeks, and here's my improvements. And Rob, would you mind looking at it the week after? It would not have worked. It had to be done at the spur of the moment at that time. Okay. Now, I'm a fan of quotes, and I actually take inspiration from various quotations. So one of the ones that, Audrey Hepburn tells, and she's from Hollywood and has a fantastic story behind that. And where she says, nothing is impossible. The word itself is I am possible. So that's laser context for this. Now let's go into the next few slides here. Okay, so I'm going to talk a little bit more about the techniques of this particular process. Okay, first of all, like I said, it's instinctive. It's a natural phenomenon. It's just that we don't use it much, especially when it's really needed. Okay, now how do we go about making this a part of our daily life? How do you build an organization that uses this philosophy? Okay, now first step is when you start doing this right, the first thing that you want to think about is leave the legacy for a second. Okay, whatever has been done by people before us has been done in a particular way. Okay, and it has been very successful. But that rear view mirror is not how you can go to, how you can move forward. It's a good rear view mirror. Okay, your achievements in the past are not necessarily an indicator of your future, future achievements. Okay, now, and as Steve Jobs rightly says, for something like this, you've got to be burning with an idea or a problem or something wrong that you've done that you want to correct. Okay, if you're not passionate enough from the start, it'll never come out. Okay, so the process in many ways starts with you and your passion. Okay, now Michael Phelps, one of USA's greatest swimmers, last Olympics, not the last one, but the one before, the hero from that, okay, who says you can't put a limit on anything. The more you dream, the further you get. This is your dreams. I mean, when you're talking about instinct, sometimes, that instinct also comes with a lot of dreaming. Okay, a lot of things that you have not done, but if given that position, you want to do. Okay, now 7 essential behaviors. Okay, as we go through this, and I'm gonna, in the interest of time, I'm gonna maybe do it a little bit faster. So 7 essential behaviors. Know your people and business. Okay, of course, it all comes with the team that you have, right? You and your team. Okay, that end of the day, that is what it is, and then the business has to be in some way practical. Okay, now, you don't need to be 100% realistic, as Francis alluded to earlier. We were all, and so was I, when in India, we have a common thing. When something is put in as an idea, the first thing that usually comes up is it really realistic? Is it practical? Are you sure that this can be done? Those are doubts that eventually become constraints. You're trying to have an idea that nobody has ever done, and then someone's questioning you whether it's realistic. That itself is a constraint for you, and you're fighting, leave the product or the service that you want to develop. You're now trying to answer somebody's question of realism. Okay, and you build this constraint around you while you're trying to answer that. So first thing you need to, the essential behavior here, like I said, instincts could go wrong. There is nothing in here that is, based on a past history in some cases. So you don't need to be 100% realistic. But what you have to know, though, is you need to know your goal and priorities. Okay, that goal post is something that you should have an idea on. Okay, and that has to be your topmost priority. Okay, for example of that, let me give you one more example, and this is a good friend of mine who's into weightlifting. Okay, he is actually right now he is 66 years old. Okay, 66 years old. Before he turned 58, he has lifted nothing, not even a dumbbell, not even a dumbbell. Okay, at the age of 58, for the first time, he has actually lifted a dumbbell. Okay, and then it so happened the first time he was actually lifting a barbell was trying to help someone. Someone was actually on the weighing machine and they were doing a chest press. Okay, something happened where this person could not control. So my friend goes in and then starts lifting, helping him. That was the first time he actually lifted a dumbbell. Okay. So then he got that, he thought, okay, if I'm able to help this person here, I can also do this. So he had this priority in life that around 58, when he starts, I want to do this weightlifting. Today, my friends, he's lifting about no less than about 45 kgs or so. Okay, which for his this thing was pretty good. Okay, and something that he has never done it before. Okay, but that was, you know, that it's got nothing to do with an age. It's got nothing. It's more to do with his perseverance of it, his liking of, you know, something that he has never done. What he thought impossible, he was able to do possible. You know, he was able to do those. Now, as part of this, again, you have to be following through. You have to be constant. You need to be having a constant feedback loop with your customers. You have to reward yourself whenever you can. You have to expand your team's capabilities. But ultimately, you need to know yourself. You need to know how much of, you know, end of the day, this could easily become a very, you know, useless, worthless idea if you don't know yourself. Okay, if you do not know what is your own capabilities, if you don't trust yourself, if you don't have self-belief in yourself, then you're going to make a fool out of one can easily make a fool out of themselves. Okay. Now, the other thing, you know, about this art of the possible is, as Albert Einstein himself says, everyone knew it was impossible until a fool who didn't know about this came along and then did this. So it's people, you know, when we, for example, think that can you climb the Mount Everest? Everyone will think that it is not possible till somebody showed us the way. Today, there are thousands of people who have already done that. If you look into it, back in the day when I was in India, it was impossible to think beyond Tatas and Birlas. Today, if you look into it, India, Tatas and Birlas are there, but there's several others who are actually in the mix. And even, you know, number one, number two, number three may not be even these people. So there is a lot of, you know, the possibilities out there, just that we have termed them as impossible because of, you know, our legacy kind of, you know, thinking. Now, something that all of, you know, most managers say this, which is think outside the box. And John Booker in his article says, no, think outside the box is a pretty bad idea, because you're again constructing a constraint by saying that there's a box. You either do two things: take away that box and make it boundaryless, or you make the box a lot bigger. Don't think that, you know, if you look into one of the best ideas, again, going from cricket, one of the best ideas is T20. Okay, there's no boundary to what anybody can hit or anybody can do in that situation. So make the box bigger, you know, get your teams into a situation where there are no limits. You yourself embody your philosophy that there is no limit to my thinking. There's no limit to my possibilities here. Okay. And so, and then the next, you know, as we go through, I'm going to touch upon some of the other things that I've seen as a, you know, being in various sessions with some of these leaders. Okay. Now, this art of the possible, at the heart of it is also leadership. Okay. Leadership, which is, you know, and it's core to it. Okay. Because unless you are a leader, it's very, very difficult to make something that is that was previously termed impossible. You can't you can't turn it into possible all of a sudden. Okay. So one thing that I've learned from Tony Blair, and I was lucky to be in Jen Morgan's session with Tony Blair, and Tony goes on to say that, you know, first of all, change is something that everyone loves it in general. Okay, when you talk about a change, people are like, okay, it's okay, it's a nice idea and all that. But when you get into the details, that's absolutely hate change. Okay. And then when you first propose it, people tell you it's a bad idea. And then when you're doing it, they will tell you this is dumb and as bad as hell. But once you've completed it and successfully came out of it, they would tell you that, wish you did more of it. Just like, somebody saying that, I wish you won more gold medals. When at the beginning, they would tell you that, no, this is not even a team that will do anything. And now all of a sudden, when you win a bronze, people would be like, I wish they won a gold, or I wish they won a silver, something else. Okay. So prepared, that's, Tony Blair always says that, prepared to challenge yourself. Okay. Think innovatively, because keeping that spark of creativity around whatever you do is incredibly important. Okay. That spark of creativity, absolutely important. And then Tony, by the way, also tells that, never make an enemy deliberately, because you will make them anyway during the course. So don't, if someone doesn't like that idea, it's okay for them. Don't make an enemy out of it, because there'll be several others that'll be, in the queue. So same thing, with Walt Disney, who says that all our dreams can come true if you have the courage to pursue them. As I get on to my next slide, I'm going to talk about some interesting conversations that I've seen around Satya Nadella, who's the CEO at Microsoft. Okay, and Satya in his and again, this is in one of the sessions at SAP at Sapphire, and where Satya says that his journey has not been something that is a fantastic curve of progress. It's actually been several ups and downs, and it's choice that he has made it those times that has actually helped me become successful. Same instinctive thing. There are several things that Satya also did based on instinct that were groundbreaking. If you look into what Microsoft was before him and after him, it was not because they didn't have good thinkers before. They had fantastic thinkers, but it's that instinct that drove him into a path that Microsoft has never taken before. So as we go through the next one, how are we doing on time? I just want to make sure I'm okay on time here. Francis, please let me know if I'm running a bit late on anything. Okay.
Xavier, sir, what do you say? Another 10 minutes is okay?
Another 10 minutes. Yep. Okay. Let's do that. Okay.
All right.
Does that works for your timing, right? Or
I would also like to hear from Xavier, sir. Dr. Xavier, the president. We are good to go, right, for another 10 minutes?
Yeah, I think it's good. It's good. We can go for another 10 minutes.
Yeah, all right.
Okay.
Yeah.
No. Satya, in his Art of the Possible says, you got to be passionate, okay, and you got to learn all the time, okay. The last part is really key. Okay. Now, why he says that is, if you've had some initial success, you want to build upon that. Okay. And then you want to further build upon that. So if someone's made a 10-foot jump, then that second 12-foot, and then the 14-foot, that part of it, you've got to go going. I mean, you've got to, jump to a new height. Okay. And if you don't, you won't survive. Now, this is something that, it is again going back to that instinct. You don't have much time in here to go and prepare a plan. And then, your competitors are catching up. They're right behind you. Or the market leader is much ahead of you. There's only limited resources. Okay. So how do you go about doing that? Okay. Now, in all of this, we talked about instinct. We've talked about leadership. Now, the third one, which is equally important, is the ability to take risk. Okay. In a world that is changing really quickly, the only strategy that is guaranteed to fail, according to Mark Zuckerberg, the CEO at Facebook, is if you don't take any risks. if you don't take any risk, that's a recipe for your failure. Okay, so we've talked about instinct. We talked about leadership, and then the third one we're going to talk about is risk. Okay, taking a good amount of risk. Okay, now why are people afraid of taking risk? As Elon Musk says, okay, it's because it's a fear of failure. Okay, now in many cases, right, it's not actually a fear of failure. Okay, because most people also can say that, okay, I've failed and it's fine. What happens with the fear of failure is you take away chances of repetition. People once, especially in many countries, even today, when you fail once, it's very difficult to get an opportunity the next time. Okay, that is why people are a little bit averse to taking any risk, and they have the fear of failure also. In this one here, the whole, because this is instinct again, and the instinct doesn't know win or fail. You have to embrace failure. You will enjoy your wins even more if you know what failure is. Again, make sure that that feedback loop is there. Now, Thomas Alva Edison, we all know, and we've read about him so many times. He says it's not that he failed. He just found out 10,000 ways that won't work. So at least in this thing, he has thoroughly, gone through that thing of failing 10,000 ways. Okay. And then, of course, the rest is history. Same thing, Michael Jordan, the world's greatest basketball player, says, accept failure, that he can accept failure. He just cannot accept not trying. Okay. So then you've got, the last two ones are, the naysayers. People who will always say, no, don't do this. This takes too much time. The risk far outweighs the reward. This is not practical. This is not real. No, don't let the fear of time it will take to accomplish something stand in the way of you doing. Time, here's the thing. When you try and say that it's my instinct, I am going to do this. Someone's going to say, no, don't do that. That's going to take you 6 months. In reality, 6 months is nothing. 6 months just goes off. Okay. The time, and then you will repent saying, oh, I actually wish I followed my instinct and I should have done this. Okay. That's when, going back to Tony Blair again, be a doer, not a critic. If someone asks you, can they do this? Does it look too risky? Give them an advice, but don't be a critic. Okay. The future rewards those who press on. Barack Obama was in a position where, there's no time to complain. It's just go. So we've got, the instinct, we've got the leadership, we've got the risk taking, we've taken off the failure, the fear of failure. We are removing ourselves from a lot of criticism. Okay. And get into the action first. And any of this to work, actually, you have to get into the action. This is part of the lean thinking also, what is called as Gamba, where actually work happens. For you to be a leader, you have to be in there where the action happens. If you don't understand the details of your business, chances of failure are high. Jeff says the same thing, and so does Jack Welch. Says you got to control your own destiny here. Okay. Now, the 5 things that truly will make you a better leader or a better, especially better in terms of your instinct is detachment. Okay. What I call as Mamba mentality. And this is one of the greatest players of basketball, Kobe Bryant, says, here's where this is a very different approach compared to what we have learned in classrooms, as part of our or even as part of our cultural upbringing, right? There's a lot of, do the right thing, be kind, be respectful. All that is correct. But in certain times, right, you have to be in a situation where you have to detach yourself. You cannot please everybody. You have to hold people accountable. Even if you have that moment of being uncomfortable, you have to hold people accountable. Okay. That is the Mamba mentality that again drives your instinct. Okay. Now, I have put together a little bit of, a way you can train, in terms of instinct, but I can't cover all of this because of, in the interest of time. But typically I do this, it's a 4-hour workshop where we go through each of these details and then, help people improve their instincts. In the interest of time, my leaving notes here would be, first thing, stand up to challenges. Okay, challenges will always be there. Stand up to criticism because critics will always be there. Okay, become a better leader, expand your possibilities, bring the strongest team possible. Okay, if you have this kind of, as a recap, if you look into your instinct, art of possible is all about your instincts, trying to prove something that was never done before. Okay, and you're trying to make that as a possibility. What drives you? Your leadership drives you. Along with your leadership, your risk-taking capabilities will drive you. When you take risk, there's always a fear of failure. So get away from that, conquer, overcome that fear. You're always going to have the no-sayers. You're always going to have people that will be the critics of you. And that's absolutely fine. But at the same time, do not leave your chances. Every single chance that you don't take, that is 100% loss to that. Stand up to your challenges, improve your, based on the Mamba mentality and Gamba, improve your instincts. Okay, I'm open for any questions. I have some other work maps on how to make this. Today, we've kind of covered the theory part of it. And at some point, if people are interested more on this methodology, I'll be more than happy to come back with some real life work maps on how you can develop some of these instincts. Okay. Francis, I'm not sure if I've taken a little bit more time than expected, but I truly thank everyone's time today.
That's absolutely fine, Srini. It was wonderful listening to you. And even though we've gone a bit overboard with time, it's fine. I'm sure people enjoyed it very much. Gio, over to you.
Thank you, sir. It's really a motivating and inspiring talk. An ideal one to close the series of webinars throughout the year, and an ideal and valedictory, an ideal one. So, over to the president for his comments. Savior, sir.
Yes, Mr. Srini, you gave us a very wonderful class, and you only opened our eyes. We can also do impossible to possible. You taught us impossible means I am possible. We can do wonders if there is no fear at all. It's a really wonderful program, and for many of us, this is a courage building exercise. And my dear friends, this kind of people who made impossible to possible, one Mr. Goodnight Mohan, he has innovated a product. At that point of time, we never thought there will be a product which can be used as a mosquito repellent. And Mr. Mohan is coming to TMA within a fortnight, within a couple of weeks. So a lot of people who made impossible to possible are again coming to TMA. And Mr. Ramakrishnan from Shobha DLF is also coming. So let us hope that there are so many examples within us who can contribute a lot for this kind of lessons. Okay, Srini sir will be getting more classes from you in future as well, the practical sessions. And I'm very much thankful to Engineer Francis John for bringing this kind of great people and telling us about the art of possible. We never heard this kind of classes because this is knowing we people how better we can perform in future. The self-confidence. Very good.
My pleasure, sir.
Yes, very good, sir. So over to Mr. Gio. You can invite people for a question and answer session.
Yeah. It is the time for the forum is open. It's time for interactions.
Mr. Srini, I mean, that is a great session. My question is the first point, instinct. That is a very vague or, term. Some of them get it very right at all the times. So is it experience that is helping them out, or is there something beyond that?
No, it is actually, in many ways, it is instinct cannot, even if you take, two situations, right? And if your instinct says yes on both, it doesn't mean that, yes will work in both cases. Okay. So you will definitely have, you will definitely have a situation as you start going through this, your instincts will only become better by experience. Okay. You will know that, okay, for a particular thing. And let's just take, a small example of, let's say even, if you look into a stock trading, for example, okay, that is also based on instinct. Not everyone does a lot of financial, what is earnings per share, what is the gross revenue, what is the operational cost, how many margins is taken. 90% of people that I know of actually do it based on instinct. Okay, but they do have clear, good instincts of it. Okay, that is one part of it. The second one that I have seen, people do, of course, at a work level also, trying to build some products, trying to build some services. That's where I've seen a lot of instinct. So in many ways, it improves over time. But we need to use it, though, a lot. The problem that most of the time happens is we go in a very structured way. Because, you have to do one, and step one is after the first one. Step 5 is after step 4. There isn't the path-breaking thing where after step 2, you can actually go to step 5. That instinct, because that's naturally against your instinct. Okay. So it does improve over time, but it also depends on the situations that you'll be in, where it's, that situation where you can actually make use of your instincts. Where nothing but you got to make a call, and it's not based on your history, and moving forward is the only way. So it's part of that.
Thank you.
Sir, is there any relationship between the instinct and intuition?
There is actually. There can be easily confused to be the same also in many cases. Okay. Intuition in many cases is a best guess. Okay. Instinct is best guess with conviction, saying, yes, let's do this. Let us not be afraid of failure. Okay. Intuition, sometimes it's really it's a good guess. It's a pretty good guess, but now you're actually combining it with leadership. Okay. With no fear of failure. You're open to criticism. Okay, usually when you're saying my intuition is this, nobody's going to criticize you because they're thinking, okay, it's his intuition. Okay, but when you say it's my instinct, I want to go this way, then all of a sudden other things will open, challenges will open in front of you that you need to overcome.
Yes, sir. One thing you mentioned about Mamba's Mamba emotions, that is honesty, detachment, that fearlessness and passion and all. So how does detachment would contribute to the art of converting impossible to possible?
So detachment in many ways, right? Let's just say that, the place where it plays in a lot more is holding people accountable. Okay, whether it's your brother, whether it's your family, whether it's your son or whoever it is, right? The detachment part of it is holding people accountable that, here is what we're going to do. If you have this idea, okay, you want to pursue this. There'll be 10 people around you saying that it may not work out. Okay, there'll be 2 people that say that, yes, I think it's a great idea. Let's proceed with this. The place where you can actually detach and say that Mamba mentality, where you're completely focused on the end goal. All you see is that, okay, where you're detached from whether people are saying, see, if 2 people say yes and 8 people say no, your mind always looks into the 8 people. The mind will forget these other 2 people. Okay, so in that way, you're detached from our, input at that point. Okay, and you're so focused in it that you're just going after the goal.
Yeah, thank you. So, any other queries?
Yeah, just the last one. It becomes a little difficult to explain the instincts to your various stakeholders, right? So they always want a logic, a process, and a background to your decisions and why you chose that. So do you suggest a process for the decisions on instincts, or how do you explain this to the stakeholders?
See, that's a fantastic question. That's a fantastic question, actually. So half the time, people do not follow their instincts because they have to explain to others. And there's no logic in this. Unfortunately, there isn't a logic in explaining this decision that you made based on your instinct. Okay, there isn't a scientific way. In typical projects, you have some waterfall method or some, agile method and some reasoning, and here's the budget, here's my resources, here's my time and all, and material, all that. Okay. In this, there is no true, real, customer, let's say, calls and says that, I need this to be delivered as this. Okay. The usual time that it takes is 3 days. Okay. How do you make it possible? You're probably going to the airport. You're now trying to innovate at the same time. You're going to the airport. You're catching the pilot and giving him that package, and the pilot gives it to his friend. Somehow the customer still gets it. It's all possible. There is no impossible in this. But natural way to send a package is 3 days. Right? But there are ways that your instinct will tell you that, and there isn't a way unless you do it. And unless you share it with 10 other people, others will not believe it. So that's the reason the last 2 comments of stand up for challenges, stand up for criticism, because those are naturally, when you have instinct-based decision making, those usually come in. But, once you succeed, right, once you have that opportunity, once you complete it, you're going to open the door to several hundred of your friends who can, who have this new way of making decisions, or at least something to look for.
Thanks.
I just want to ask you something, Srini. You quoted Steve Jobs, right? And Steve Jobs is known to be to play with emotions. I mean, he used to tell stories. He used to remember great details about the team that worked with him, and he used to use it to his advantage to get things done. Right. So
yes,
he would say, I've heard one of the team members say, he would say things like, somebody came in and talked about a failure in a project, and he asked, he quoted something that is the employee's father or mother had said, which he had quoted during his interview. Just think how your father would feel of you at this point of time. And that one thing was enough to keep going and achieve that, overcome the failure and achieve the. So, is there some, in your experience, in your own experience, or have you heard from people how they play with the emotions of people to get things done?
Absolutely, I've seen that, especially with Steve Jobs. I've heard several stories of him, and I'll relate one particular one. But, some of these leaders also, they have a way to motivate you in the direction that they want to go. Okay. If they have a particular preset mind, they're going to take you there regardless, just like how he did to Bud. He needed to take that, 20 seconds off. In fact, the math that he made about that one, saving a lifetime of one person, that's all lesser of the thing. He convinced somehow this Bud to reduce the 20 seconds. What he was trying to get to is a reduction of 20 seconds. If not that way, he would have gone some other math and he still would have asked for that. Okay. But so some of these leaders also, they will find a way on how to motivate, whether it is sometimes demotivating others or demoralizing others. But I'll tell you one of the most important, things that he used to do, which literally used to scare everyone at Apple. There was an engineer who once went on the elevator with Steve Jobs. Okay, and on the lift, Steve asked the engineer saying, "What do you do?" No, actually, the engineer said, "Hello, sir, how are you?" That's what happened. Okay, the engineer asked, "Hello, sir, how are you?" And then he said, "Yeah, I'm fine. And how are you doing?" And then he asked, "What do you do at Apple?" And then the person said, "Well, I do this particular work, this programming work I do." And then Steve again responded saying, "No, but what do you do at Apple?" The person again said, "Well, I do this development and all that." I said, and then Steve again, the third time he said, no, but I don't, I'm not asking about this thing. What do you do at Apple? Of course, I would have had the same confusion if he asked me the same question. I wouldn't have answered any better, by the way. But then he said, "Here's the thing. When I ask you what do you do at Apple, I expect you to tell me something around, here's how I made Apple better for both its customers and for Apple as a company. Okay, I expect you to tell me that you made somebody's life at Apple better by doing a product that has never been done before, by doing an idea that has never been touched upon before. I don't expect you to do the same work that 100 other people in other companies are doing." Okay, that is a kind of differentiator. So what was the lesson learned out of this? When you're stuck in an elevator with Steve Jobs, never wish him, because that poor guy wished him, and that's how he got into this.
Srini, I just want to ask one question. Like, typically from our own family system and the culture, we tend to be very conformist all the time. Like if you see in the family system or in education, you have a predetermined and predefined goals. Like, in the education system, 1 + 1 = 2. Or what is the opposite of green? Black, it should be white. Yes. So we have a set of education system and family in which conforming something what has been trained or practiced and predefined is the quotient for success. And when you really want to build a career in the family system, you say you have to be an engineer or a doctor. There is no other profession available in the world. So once you live in this kind of culture and family system, how do you really start thinking in a different way of art of possible? I'm saying, yes, there are successful people, but by the time when you grow up and in your growing up stage, you are hard-coded with a lot of defined and answers for all the things. Because I have seen this whenever you do a training session, just to unwind people or maybe unsettle people, you ask a question like, what is the opposite of black? Okay, they will say white. What is the opposite of tall? They will say short. And what is the opposite of green? Suddenly they don't have an answer, because the teachers in the classroom not taught them what is the opposite of green.
Oh, right.
So we have this family system and education system in which we always think and give tick mark or 100% for conforming answers or maybe convergent thinking. So how do you really inculcate this in our own family system and in the organizations, continuously making them to think differently and looking at the possibilities? What's your experience?
Yeah, that's a fantastic question. In fact, I'm really glad you asked me that, because it's a very important point that I missed during this particular because of just compressing it to 30 minutes or so. I missed one very important point. Okay, which is, see, that that philosophy of 1 + 1 is 2. Here's the standard. Here's what is the status quo. Just follow that, and you will become an engineer or a doctor, and you'll do great. That has forever been there. I mean, we've all gone through that same phase. Now, one of the earlier ways, or the best ways to get away from that, while conforming to whatever you do, but at the same time do something a little different to test yourself, is sports. Okay, so whether you're doing bachelor's in engineering or doctor or any other course, right? One thing that most leaders that I have seen, again, it goes back to the same possibilities sessions. One thing that I've seen as a differentiator was everyone picked up a sport that was not in their, and even if it is something that their family has done, in sports, you have to almost start from scratch anyway. So in many ways, there also, each one of them is actually a chess player. The other one plays soccer that has never been played in there. So they go through that way, realize still, that they have that metal in them. And, I have seen, certain people that have actually pursued, in a family of academicians. Okay, they have Lakshman, who's actually one of my seniors. Everybody in his family are doctors. Okay, he's the only. He became one of India's greatest cricketers, and then now becoming a fantastic commentator. Two things that has never been there in this thing. So there are those examples, but I've seen those more on the sports side.
Thank you, Srini.
Could I
enjoyable
ask
session.
A question, slightly different topic?
Yes, please.
Yeah. It's the headline of today, the Taliban takeover. After spending hundreds of billions of dollars and the finest of machinery, the best of behavioral or industrial engineers or scientists, 20 years, 10 days, it took a group of semi-literate people to take over a country. How could you explain such a phenomenon? I mean, what went wrong?
Well, I'll tell you
just
what.
A different
in fact,
perspective. I have a perspective from a person completely different from our background here. Sorry.
No problem at all. I'll tell you what my view of this is. Okay, and I'll be honest with you. I've actually posted that to another friend last night. So, US has been there for 20 years, spent close to $1 trillion. Our intelligence is next to nobody. I mean, it's probably the foremost. There are not many. Even if there's 3 countries in the world, US intelligence is in one of them. Okay. And as you know, in politics, there is 1 + 1 is not equal to 2. 1 + 1 could be 4 or 5, or it's a position of strength. So my thinking is this is planned in many ways. For the common people from outside in, it looks like this has been a reason, a thing of failure. But only history can say, because from where I'm looking, I mean, I've been reading a lot of articles on this. This could be a position where US might have actually, there must have been some heavy engagement of background talks. There are, other, it could be a way to checkmate China. It could be various other diplomatic reasons for which what this is done. Here's what I would think will tell us the story. in about a month, if countries, or about 2 months or 1 month or 2 months, if countries will start recognizing the new government in Afghanistan as legitimate, and they start having their embassies there and consulates there, that means this is a big pre-plan. If countries really get away, never to go back there again, then it's a shock to everyone. But if they really have their embassies and all that, then I think I would take this as a pre-planned effort.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Now over to the president to say a few words.
Srini sir, thank you for your brilliant answers for the questions. With your permission, let me make an announcement to the members, sir.
Yes, please.
Okay. Okay, dear friends, TMA is creating records one after the other. During 2015-16, we made a record of sending maximum number of participations in the AIMA Shaping Young Minds program. And again, last 2019 also, we created another record of sending maximum number of participants for this Shaping Young Minds program. And on 26th of this month, that next week, we are hosting another Shaping Young Minds program for AIMA, and it will be attending nearly 10,000 participants. This is our all India record. So, my dear friends, those who have not registered for this Shaping Young Minds program, you can also join. Only a few more days are left, and we'll make it as a history for TMA. And I have to thank Engineer Vinod and Engineer Gopalakrishnan and other people who helped us to create records for us. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Now for proposing vote of thanks, may I invite the Honorable Secretary, Mr. Pradap.
Thank you, Gio. I hope I'm audible.
Yeah.
Okay. I'd like to thank Srini, Tanikella for a wonderful thought processing speech, the experience which he has gone through. Thank you very much, Srini. It was a wonderful experience for us and for all the people who are watching it. Thank you very much, Srini. I'd like to thank President Xavier sir for conducting such a wonderful meeting. And I'm not glad or something, but it's the last meeting. Okay, but it has been a wonderful year, and I'm sure everybody enjoyed it. I'd like to thank Vinod Manjula, Paul Thomas, Gio for being an MC, and Francis George. Thank you very much for bringing a person like Srini to our platform, which he has done very well. And welcome George Paul to TMA, and thank you all. Thank you very much. Thank you all.
Thank you very much, Mr. Pradap Varki. And now over to the President.